all my Zoom recordings are on that laptop. So I had the part 2 of population ecology is in there. So I have to redo the part 2 for you. That's where we left off on the graph. In this graph, let me show you. And this is where that's where part 1. So if you go into your Canvas discussions for the lectures and you see part 1, that's the video you have. Well, I have the other video for you, but I don't have my laptop, and hopefully they can recover it. I don't know what happened. It's not like it fell or dropped or anything like that. So hopefully the IT people can do a good job. So my director took it to our main campus so they can work on it, because it's kind of high priority, make sure we get that laptop up and running. So again, I'm using this some other laptop, and then I had to register it, get it connected and all that different stuff. So it's been an interesting time. So here we are in population ecology, and just to give you a brief update, we looked at wolves and moose and how these populations are connected, how they how this is just one little piece of the puzzle. And the thing is, I was trying to tell you guys that, yeah, we grew up, some of us, depends when and where we had our educations, but we kind of grew up with the whole the food chain, and which was linear. And in nature, nothing is linear. It's more of a web. It's highly integrated. A plant, and I mean a plant, affects other plants, and how that works. For example, I'll give you one example how things work. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of deer where I reside, and I mean a lot. Why? Well, my parents and I have been working on cutting some mesquites. And as soon as we started removing these mesquites from a particular area, there's more light, because mesquites have leaves and they're shaded. They're also taking up nutrients. They're really good at taking up water and nutrients. As we started clearing, these new types of plants began to grow that have these orange and reddish flowers. I don't know the name of it, but deer are just going nuts for these. They're going to town on these flowers, and in broad daylight. Normally they'll they're gonna hide, but when things are that tasty, they'll come out at all hours of the day. Again, remove one plant and look what happened. Another plant came, and then some animals came in. That's what we're talking about here, guys. That's how we're saying how they're connected. If you have a big, large wolf population, well, the moose population is going to come down, because they're going to be attacking some of these moose. And of course, they try to focus on the young ones, right? Usually not. I think they call it a bull, a large male, fully grown moose. I don't think that's what they're going to be trying to do, but they're going to be trying to take down a young one, maybe 6 months old, something like that. But that's still part of the population. So anything that affects the size of a population could affect other populations in the ecosystem. That's exactly what I was saying. I took out these, not all mesquites, but took a good amount, because I want to put a cow there. And trees and grass have never gotten along. Never really gotten along. In a place like this, if you have a large tree right here, I can guarantee you that there will not be a lot of grass around this tree, because the tree is going to provide shade and the grass won't have enough light to conduct photosynthesis. Like the Great Plains of the United States, right? The Great Plains. Why is it the Great Plains? There are no trees there. And as a result, there's just grass. So trees and grasses have never gotten along. One thing will affect another, always. This is how come I also tell you what we do and how we do it, like I'm talking about environmental policies, if it's a pollution, if it's some sort of regulation on this company, if it's some sort, it all affects. There's always some sort of effect occurring. And truth is, if we do an environmental policy that's too harsh for companies here to make money, because that's what it's about, a business. Nobody makes a business to go broke. People make a business to make income and maybe not have their own private jet, but they make income to provide for their families and to provide jobs for others. Well, if this environmental, whatever, we're just making a policy X, if environmental policy X is too stringent and too hard, and it's too costly to meet, oh, that product will be made somewhere else on planet Earth. It will go somewhere else. Someone will make it. And that is the balance. That is the type of balance. And they will make it, the other people, they will make it with practically no environmental regulations on that product. So what happened now? What happened to the effects? Okay, well, one, environmental policy was too stringent, company couldn't survive, loss of jobs. Okay, two, jobs went outside, overseas. Three, that job was created with practically no environmental regulation. Four, planet Earth got more populated because of the policy. You see how it all comes around? So what we think may be super, super awesome may not be super, super awesome. So we have to be very conscious, and we have to be also willing to give a little, because there is no perfect solution. Here, again, we're looking at different patterns here. In this particular case, we're looking at, all right, of course, if there's a good diet, great, they're going to be doing good, moving up. In this particular case, it says the main diet of these wolves was moose, and the wolf population grows and it diminishes in response to the availability of its food source. If there aren't that many moose going, if there's not enough moose or food, the population will begin to decline. That's a fact. And that's the way that happens. Here it says tree ring width, right? The width of a tree. And you can see resulting in slower tree growth right here. Something happened in the environment. Here it was really growing kind of fast. Over here, something happened. Most likely, it could have been two things that come to mind. Moisture content. It could be some disease, or maybe it just got too darn cold. We all experience that. What happens? I have some plants, they call them chile piquin, or also known as chile del monte plants. Beautiful plants, beautiful. I mean, huge plants, not in pots, in ground. And with this cold that we experienced, they look dead. They're just like gone. So I have to come trim and all, but they're shooting at the bottom. So they survived, but they're starting almost from the beginning, you know? So very interesting. So tree growth can be measured by the width of each tree ring. One ring represents the amount of growth in 1 year. So yeah, when people say, hey, look, count the rings. Yes, it's the amount of growth approximately within 1 year. The wider the ring, the more growth in that year. So if you go and if you, all of us around in this area have had a campfire or cut mesquite tree or an oak tree for firewood or for cooking, next time take a look at those rings, you know, show that to someone like, hey, look, over here was pretty good times right here. And here's a little struggle. And then look at that one. That's a very thin one. That year was rough. It had a rough time. Population ecology, right? That's the topic we're at. So, and growth. So we're going to be looking at some different things to monitor the health of animals. And one of the things one can do is look at, they call it scat. One can call it droppings. So you can take a look at these poop, right? So it has a lot of information in there. You can see what it's eating. You can even tell the state of how the animal is doing. Same thing with a person. A person, you take a sample, there's a lot you can kind of reveal about that. So there's some really good important stuff in terms of this for trying to understand population ecology. Here's a wolf scat, so this could be a source of DNA. Yeah, you can actually get some DNA from there, providing a genetic profile for each wolf on the island. That's possible. Bones, we went into bones and fossils and things, but now these are not fossils, right? But we learned from fossils that we can tell some information about them. Now these are going to provide more information because they're above ground, they're not fully decayed, but you can see, you can tell if was it suffering, did good health, was there good calcium, some arthritis, maybe some osteoporosis, bone marrow, all these things you can tell in bone. Same with humans. Urine soaked in the snow, that's a little bit harder to find. You literally have to be watching a moose or wolf out there, hiding, and then you have to look at it, and then it pees, and then you have to go collect it. So that is a little more tough. You don't just randomly go to Alaska and pick up some snow and say, let me test here if I have some urine. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to watch and be out in the field. And that's a tough thing. Again, if we're talking about moose, because a moose, as we learn from its pattern, it's very irregular. Like it's just no rhyme or reason why it goes certain places. It just goes different places for like just food. I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna go over here, I'm here. Wolves, on the other hand, you can find their trail. You can set up shop somewhere and try to hide and monitor them. But a moose it's very difficult. It's like I said, if I was out there, if I went on an Alaska trip and I crashed in a small plane and hopefully I survive, I'm not hurt, and I have a rifle, I'm going to tell you this, moose is not going to be my first option. I'm going to try to go for a rabbit, see I can see some rabbit trails, so they're going to want to go into a hole somewhere, maybe a fox, heck, maybe a wolf. I mean, whatever I can kind of see, but a moose, I'm definitely not going to try to track a moose. Not only that, it's very large, and it's moving, covering ground way faster than me, and I'm going to deplete a lot of my energy resource. So I want something that I can store my energy and find some food to replace that. As we've been talking about, there are a number of factors that influence the likelihood that wolves will kill. Factors being sometimes when it gets hard on them, the risk that they will take goes up. Same things with lions. Lions, they become a little more risky. These animals are very highly calculated. They're not like us. We do a lot of dumb things. We do things that could hurt ourselves. We see a lot of this in the TikTok and all this social medias, people doing dumb things and they get hurt. They don't show you the long-term effects, but we do it as a species because we have a place to go to get help. They don't. So they're not doing really dumb things. The only reason they risk themselves, the only time they place themselves at risk is when they're trying to feed themselves. Because they know, other than that, if they break a leg, it's over. It's curtains for them. There's no vet out there. Nothing's going to come. The pack's not going to wait. He or she will be left behind to die. That's just the hard core facts of Mother Nature. The pack will leave. So they do get risky. So I'm just adding information here in terms of factors that influence the likelihood that a wolf will kill a moose. Now, what if they see a moose that's a little sickly? Oh yeah, hey, like the weak, the strong will prey on the weak. That is always true of nature, right? Same thing, you look in areas in certain parts of Africa, right? They watch and lions, they watch and they look in the whole pack. Hey, which is the weak one? Which one do they think? And they're just studying, watching, slowly trying to pick which prey because they don't want to go toe to toe with the alpha, right? One kick from a zebra can break a rib, several ribs can do a damage. Of course, this is a wolf, but let's pretend it's a lion, right? So a lot of factors come into play. Also, the population density. If there's a lot of moose around, then you're going to have more kills. That's just the way it is. You have less moose, less kills, and that's where population comes into play. Numbers of organisms per given area. So right now, I told you about a lot of deer coming in to eat those little flowers, so those plants I talked about. The population density is increasing. So in that area, more of them are there because that tree, that mesquite trees were being removed, and now this plant is emerging, right? And they're just, the population density is there. Now, what could this mean? This could mean that now that more deer coming in, you know what? Maybe more coyotes might come in. Maybe there'll be a young, maybe they'll have young, well, not right now, but they'll might have a young, and then, hey, maybe they can take down that little deer. Coyotes do that. So density dependent factors, a factor whose influence on a population size and growth depends on the number and crowding of individuals in the population, such as predation. Again, I gave you that simple one where some trees were being removed, and hey, it influenced a population of a plant to rise and then bring in some deer. So it's very interesting, but this is the dependent factors. This such as predation. Remember when I talked about like weather in terms of those rings? Well, these are independent factors. So a factor that influences a population size and growth, regardless of the numbers or crowding within a population. Outside, right? Outside of other animals, you can have weather. That's a good one. Like I just talked about this harsh weather in terms of hurting a lot of trees. What I found out, we had a student who was talking about a peach tree surviving really well. I found out that I got interested, and I wanted to know if it was just a unique peach tree, because then I was going to ask for some seeds of the student's peach tree. But what I come to find out, I started asking around, calling up friends around our region, and asked if they had peach trees. And then I asked how their peach trees were doing, since we're talking about weather. And I come to find out that the peach trees, I guess, of our area fared really well. They did pretty good considering the amount of cold and snow. So I didn't know that peach trees could do so well. So from what I gathered, everyone who had a peach tree said, hey, no, my peach tree is doing okay. May not be doing as awesome as Laura's peach tree, but nonetheless, it's alive and leaves are growing, not bearing fruit yet. No one I know other than Laura in this class, her peach tree has fruit. None of the people I talked to have fruit, but they will in time have fruit. So peach trees did really well. So something that you might want to consider. So now guess what's going to happen. So if a lot of other citrus trees have died, or for example, my parents had a huge citrus tree. This thing was more than 2 stories tall. And now it's like 4 feet tall because all the other parts died of it. And it didn't do good, right? But it's still alive. But all those branches were dead and frozen, gone. So all that got trimmed off, and now it's like a huge, large stump, but there's a little branch growing from it. Okay. What does this mean? You know what this means? That when birds come around to pick on the fruits of the citrus or any kinds of fruits from plants in our region, this time they're going to come around and find that there are less plants bearing fruits. That was because of a density independent factor. So the birds now are going to be then hitting up lots of peach trees. Now, the seeds usually in a peach tree are large, so I don't think a bird's going to like carry that and drop it somewhere or eat it and poop it. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. But you know what's going to happen? Since a lot of birds do not have a lot of resources, food to go to because of the harsh winter, a lot of birds are going to be going where? To those peach trees. And before you get a hold of that nice little peach tree, they're probably going to pick on it and hit it and hit it and hit it because they're trying to get that sugar to make ATP. So a lot of the peach tree fruits are going to be getting hit by various species of birds. Trust me. And this is all part of the ecosystem that we're talking about. Now, if you want to protect your trees, there is a type of netting you can do. You can put over your tree. like it's a bird netting. What they do, like the birds will come and they like land on it, and it kind of like catches their feet, and they freak out. They're like, oh, and they leave when and it freaks them out, and they leave. Now I have seen some birds, those crows, which are very intelligent, go push, like go to the ground and pick up the net with their heads and go under the net and then go up to the tree to get the fruit. I think they're the smartest birds that I have ever seen. Those blackbirds, crows, whatever you want to call them, krakens, whatever they are. They're very, very intelligent. But for the most part, most birds will freak out with the net, and then they're like, oh, no, I'm not going to go to Laura's peach tree anymore. Like that's scary. That's scary, and they're going to leave her peach tree alone. Biotic factors. So living components. So bio mean living, right? So these are living components that take a role in terms of population growth. Abiotic would be like weather, living components of the environment, and again, affecting population growth. So here, let's take a quick look example. We were talking about our harsh winter. Here we go. That's an abiotic factor. So I think of absence of life. We can call it abiotic factors. Yes, the trees, yes, they're living. Please, that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the background, the snow, the ice. And it gets a little dicey sometimes, even when you say dirt, because within dirt, a lot of living organisms are there. So you have to talk about the soil particles themselves are not living. Here's another one, a fire. So that can cause a lot of loss of life. We see that in California every year. That is largely due to arson. People out there are causing fires. I just spoke to a person last week from California, and I said, hey, look, let's not BS around here. What the hell is going on over there? You guys are on fire like all the time. Well, and I said, here in Texas, we have a heck of a lot of brush. A lot. Just drive somewhere in any direction and you're going to see a hell of a lot of brush. Big density, super dry, drier than California. Why is it that we're not burning all the time? She said, hey, we do have arson. People make burn forests down. I don't know the why. And people say, oh, the fires, oh, climate change. Oh, come on. The only way a fire is going to start when you don't have, the only way fire is ever going to start naturally is if you have lightning. Well, that's the only time. So if you're in a drought in California and you haven't had rain for a few months and then you have a fire, lightning then just spontaneously come out of the clear blue sky and strike the earth. You know what I'm saying? Like that's absurd. So no, you can't say, oh, the fires are all climate change, because that's just also a bunch of BS. What's going on here are two things. Now, these large forests over there in California are not being managed properly. The United States Department of Ag worked for the Forest Service Division of the United States Department of Agriculture. And I'm telling you, that force is an awesome force, but some of these areas are on private lands, and also there's lack of funding. And you have to go and manage this. You have to remove dead debris. There's management of these things. And that's the only way to kind of control it. You really, it's hard to find a person and stop them. It's really hard to do that. Some of those areas are very large. So the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service Division is responsible for that, but also the communities need to come into play. Communities need to go in there and help these forests and start removing dead debris. Then you move it. You can use equipment. You can all these other things. You get it. You move it to the site, and then you do a slow burn. And that's how you prep these things. So when these crazy people come to try to burn forest down, yeah, it'll start, but it won't get out of hand like the way we've been seeing. It's so sad. It breaks my heart to see all that wildlife just burn year after year after year. It's crazy. Rain or snow is very important. And yeah, here they're talking about precipitation, or one of them being that, yes, of course, that has an impact, but there's a point of prevalence which is beyond anything, right? So we have to intervene. It's not like we have a lot of forests everywhere. So what we're looking at here is everything can affect the population, and then we're just picking a moose, for example. Rainfall, snowfall, all that matters. Sometimes they go through a very harsh time when it's very, very cold and the winter lasts too long, and you see them struggling. They're starving. They're stumbling through the snow. And they put their snouts in. They move the snow to the side. They try to find a little bit of blades of grass in there. They try, and sometimes a lot of them die. They just die out there. If it's been just a rough, rough winter, there is no shelter for them to go. They don't make a cave and go into hibernation like a bear. They don't do that. That's just not what they do. Temperature is a major impact. If it's really hot, things get super hot, it can affect them just like super cold. Flea and tick populations can increase. Ooh, if you get some water, a good rain season, and then temperature goes up, oh boy, you can get a really high flea and tick. And here's disease. And you can see here, infectious organisms such as parasites, such as ticks, can reproduce more and spread more easily between moose. And moose density populations is higher. The tick infestations weaken the moose and limiting their reproduction. And that can happen. Food supply, wolves, predators, predation. You see how it gets all connected. And here we are, humans come into this one. Those who are doing bad things, burning things on purpose, arson, that's not good, right? That is not good. And I hope someday we were able to find these people, and I hope they pay a heavy price for that. This poor moose. Let's take a look at it. It's almost like mange. Some of you have seen that before in some dogs. The parasite affects them, and then you start seeing loss of hair. It eventually will kill them, and that's not a good thing. And again, they're out there. It's nothing no one can do. No one can help them. There are some diseases, for example, like we talked about, canine parvovirus. This one is a biggie. This one can affect your dogs at a young age. If you care about your dogs, make sure you go get them that parvovirus vaccine. It's really helpful. Dogs, at least I've been told by a vet, do not take your dogs to a dog park. We don't have dog parks here, but some places do. And I get it. I get it why cities have a dog thing, because people live largely in apartments and there's a lot of concrete, it's a concrete jungle. And as a result, they make a dog park. And I understand that. And we hope that people in cities are taking good care of their dogs. But if someone is not taking care of their dog properly and gets parvovirus, I was told by a vet in our area that if a dog sniffs the poop of another dog, that they can get parvo. So I personally have not read a research article on that or anything, but that's what I was told. And then it's horrible. They go through convulsions and then there's massive diarrhea, sometimes bleeding in stool. It gets bad. And sometimes they can come back from it. Sometimes they can't. Here they say climate change, less eating in warm weather. So if it's really hot, they don't want it. They don't want to eat. My dogs, if it's at 3 o'clock and if it's above like 100, nope, they don't like to eat. My dogs, I feed them in the morning, nice, cool, early. They're happy. They run around. They eat just fine. Then at night, they're just fine. Feed them midday when it's hot in our area. Nope, they don't like it. They just don't like it. Again, warmer weather favors ticks, but again, what it's not saying here is you need some moisture. And if you get some moisture, you got some rain, then you get a little hot, oh man, that's the perfect recipe. So I had to get some ticks under control, flea and tick under control in my area where I'm at. I learned a lot of things living out in our brush area. I learned a lot, and I learned how to manage this and what to do with dogs and so forth. And yeah, I'm very proud to say that I have it under control. But fortunately, we have the intelligence to make insecticides, And I don't think I would have it as under control as I do now if I wouldn't have applied the chemicals that I applied. So I have to give credit to our intelligence, who have human intelligence to make that. But I did a lot of other environmental things that helped, which is keeping grass short, don't let grass get high, all those things that controls mosquito growth, populations of mosquitoes. Yeah, they don't like it when it gets too hot. Their eggs can't survive. They need high grass so they can lay eggs underneath area, moist environment, little puddle under there, so their eggs can survive, and then their larvae then turn into mosquitoes. They will not do it if it's too hot. That's how come if you have any tires or things that can capture water, do go out there and try to help your area, help your community by getting rid of those things, or turning a bucket upside down. All these things can really help mosquitoes in our area, especially with some of the viruses that they contain. Here we see a pretty bad situation, and we see that again, warmer temperatures lead to increased tick infestations of moose, resulting loss of hair and weakened, even drops your immune system, and the population drops, and yeah, it gets bad. However, in cooler years, moose experience less hair loss and the population grows. So yeah, they don't like cold climate. Now here, let's talk about this right here, right? Let me tell you, what do you think, guys, is going to happen to this population? Like, I don't mean on this moose, but what do you think is going to happen to ticks in our region after that hard freeze? You think they're going to be a higher tick population or a lower tick population?
Lower.
Good job. Lower. Absolutely. Oh boy, those ticks, they were in for a shocker. They didn't know where to go. They're not ants. Ants are, oh gosh, they're amazing, but they're not ants. They didn't, go underground and all of a sudden develop engineering skills like an ant. No, a lot of them died. A lot of them died. And the ones that survived were the ones that were nicely tucked away into an animal that was carrying them. And then the animal tried to stay warm, and that is how they survived the harsh winter. The ones that were just hanging on the blade of grass when that snow came, oh boy, they did not make it. That's good. I'm glad, because some of our animals sometimes do suffer here, like pigs, from high infestations of ticks. And when you go out there and you try to, and people shoot a wild pig, good eating. You want to talk about 100% organic? Hey, we have them here, right? They're not on antibiotics or hormones, or they're eating out. They're all nature. You have to be careful. You have to be careful when you're skinning them, because some of these will then jump off and get on you, and you can get Lyme's disease. So you have to be very careful with what you're doing. Ticks may weaken the moose and make it vulnerable to predation. And then the wolves come in here and then kind of gets on them too, and that's not good. So it can cause the moose population to decrease and weakens them and makes them easier prey for the wolves to catch. And then the wolf population kind of goes up, and then this goes down, and then they go down. And it's just a roller coaster. It's never linear. It's never constant. So in summary, I want to mention that ecology in our ecosystem has multiple interactions, and I gave you multiple examples of that, of all the different ways things are linked together. I gave you the peach tree example. I gave you my chili plant example. I gave you the example of the plants and the deers and the mesquites, and then we're looking at the moose and the wolves and the ticks. And the winters. Like, we're all connected. We're all connected, from the living and the non-living. It's a very beautiful world that we live in, to try to understand it and preserve it. So again, ecologists study these interactions at a number of levels, including population, community, and the ecosystem. Ecosystem being the most difficult one to understand. And to be very honest and transparent with you, we don't know all the interactions of the ecosystem. That's just too complex. We don't know. How can I follow that? let's say I want to look at um, let's just talk about grazing cattle, then cattle poop, then the dung beetle, then fly. I mean, wow, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So, even the dung beetle comes into play. Dung beetle being the ones that roll up the the uh, the manure. They roll it up and they use that. So that's a dung beetle, and they play their role too. Even the things that pick up the poop, they're very, very important. Speaking of dung beetles, a dung beetle is very special. And a dung beetle is a environmental sentinel. What does that mean? Means that if you see dung beetles around a particular area, that means that area most likely is a healthy area and does not possess a lot of chemical applications. They are very sensitive to chemicals. Insecticides specifically, knock them out, they're dead. They're not like a cockroach. Cockroaches are very resistant to insecticides. They're constantly evolving. I believe that when we have another mass extinction, it is the cockroach and the ants that are going to be still left behind. I can guarantee you that, because we're due. We're going to have another mass extinction in the future. We may see it. We may not see it. Our children's children may see it. Who knows? But we will have another mass extinction. Whether that will be all natural or whether that will be human induced. Thousands of different nukes facing different countries. And like the thing going on right now in Russia and Ukraine, and then you have China and Taiwan. It's scary stuff. It's scary times. And it's a very scary time. And I can only hope and pray. Sometimes I worry because once time has passed and we forget the pains of war, and I mean World War, people tend to forget the newer generations coming up, kind of, but a war of today is far more dangerous than the war of 50 years ago. There is way more at risk to the environment, way more at risk to the innocent. It's a very dangerous thing, and we all have a role to play. I can't tell you how that role is. That's for you to figure out. It wouldn't be fair for me to tell you what your role is, but we all have a power. Each of us have a power to contribute to these global events, and we all have a voice, and all of us have a thing we can do to let people know that those things are not cool. And believe it or not, if 75% of us did what I'm thinking, they would stop. A certain group would stop doing a certain thing because we're all linked, just like what we learned in the ecosystem. And one of the things that humans value a lot is money. And if you impact the money part, people tend to, oh, I'm going to start to behave, So we all are connected. You just have to figure out the how. So some living organisms may be clumped or random in uniform distribution. We saw we saw fish, schools of fish. We saw the penguins. We saw how that works. And we saw how we talked about growth rates, and we talked about exponential and logistic growth rates. And some of the things about growth rate is bacteria. They have an exponential growth rate. So ladies and gentlemen, think about some of the things we talked about. Think about them, try to connect everything together, expand your mind, live outside of the box, do your part, and pay it forward, and teach your neighbor, teach your friends, family, all these different things, and how we have an impact and how we have a role to play. And the more of us out there that play a little tiny part, it will result in a larger event. And hopefully we can preserve what we have for future generations to come. That is our goal. That is what we want, is to preserve what we have, maybe even make it a little better. That would be great. But if we could preserve it, that would be good too. If we can make it better, wonderful. But if we can't make it better, hey, I'm cool with preserving it. I'm cool with that too. So I hope everybody has a good day, and I hope you use that time to get your Launchpad materials done. I'll be cranking out an exam for you. Sorry I didn't get it out earlier for you. Be cranking out an exam for you today. I'll send you the announcement today. Again, if I haven't been replying to some of your emails, it's also because my laptop crashed, and it's some of them I don't like replying lengthy emails on my phone because I make errors in text messaging, and then my autocorrect is not great. So, okay, everybody take care and have a wonderful day, and have a wonderful weekend. All right, keep an eye out for those announcements. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Take care, Dr. Delgado.
Take
Bye,
care.
sir.
Bye. See ya.